The sun had set and the night sky was illuminated by the full moon, casting a bright light on the small cottage nestled in the woods. Mia had been visiting the cottage for years. It belonged to her grandparents and had a special place in her heart. She had come to the cottage for a romantic weekend getaway with her boyfriend, John, who she had met only a few months earlier. The two of them were enjoying a romantic dinner at the dining table when they heard a strange noise coming from outside. Mia and John looked at each other, their eyes filled with fear. They both knew what the noise meant. The werewolf had returned. Mia and John quickly got up from the table and locked the doors, but it was too late. The werewolf had already broken through the window and was now standing in the living room, his yellow eyes glowing in the dark. Mia and John were frozen in fear, but then Mia noticed something. There was a crucifix hanging on the wall. She grabbed the crucifix and held it up towards the werewolf. Its eyes widened in fear and it quickly retreated back out the window. Mia and John hugged each other. It was a cold and dark night, and the wind seemed to whisper something sinister through the trees. Abigail shivered as she walked down the path to the old abandoned mansion. She had heard stories of the dark and mysterious things that happened here, and the thought of it sent a chill down her spine. As she approached the mansion, she could feel an eerie presence lurking in the shadows. She hesitated for a moment, but decided to go in anyway. When she opened the door, she was met with a gust of cold air and a strange smell. She felt as if she had stepped into a horror movie, and her heart raced as she ventured further into the house. Suddenly, she heard a noise coming from upstairs and she froze. She heard the slow, shuffling steps of something coming down the stairs. Abigail's heart was pounding as she realized that it wasn't human. It was a ghost. The ghost slowly moved towards her, its eyes glowing in the darkness. Abigail backed away, her heart racing even faster. But then, the ghost began to speak. It said that it had been searching for someone to love, and that it found its one true love in Abigail. The night was dark and still, the only sound was the gentle rustling of the trees in the wind. The moonlight shone down on the small town, casting an eerie glow over the streets. Aruna had been walking home from work when she heard a strange noise coming from the shadows. She stopped and listened, her heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly, a figure stepped out of the darkness and into the moonlight. Aruna gasped in surprise. It was a man, tall and handsome, with a pale face and dark eyes. He was dressed in a long black coat and a top hat, and he was staring at her intently. Aruna felt a chill run down her spine. She knew she should run, but something about the man held her in place. He stepped closer, and she could feel his breath on her face. "I've been watching you," he said in a low voice. "I've been waiting for you." Aruna felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. She knew she should be scared, but she couldn't help but feel drawn to him. The man stepped closer and took her hand. "Come with me," he said. Aruna hesitated, but then she found herself following him into the night. She had no idea where he was taking her, but she knew it was somewhere special. The man led her to a secluded spot in the woods, and they sat down together. He told her stories of love and horror, and she listened, captivated. Aruna knew she should be afraid, but she couldn't help but feel a strange kind of romance in the air. She had no idea what the future held, but she knew she wanted to find out. Deep in the heart of the Nepal countryside, there was an old house, the kind that is well known for its stories of terror and romance. It had been in the same family for generations, and many of the locals had heard stories about the horrific things that had happened within its walls. The family that owned the house had made it a point to guard their secrets well. But it seemed that the secrets were too big to keep hidden forever. One night, a young couple decided to explore the old house and its grounds. As they crept through the darkness, they could feel a strange energy in the air. They soon realized that there was something in the house that was watching them. The couple moved through the house, feeling a chill in the air as they did so. As they explored, they noticed that the walls were covered in strange symbols and markings. They felt a presence in the house, and it was all too clear that something was not right. The couple eventually stumbled upon a room that was locked from the inside. When they opened the door, they were shocked to find a beautiful woman lying on the bed, her eyes wide with terror. She told them that she had been cursed by a Nepali witch. The woman explained that the witch had put a spell on her, trapping her in the house and preventing her from ever finding true love. She asked the couple to help her break the curse so she could find true love. The couple agreed to help the woman and set out to find a way to break the curse. After some research, they discovered that the only way to break the curse was to find a special flower that only bloomed in the moonlight. The couple searched the grounds of the old house and eventually found the flower. They then placed the flower on the woman's forehead and broke the curse. The woman thanked them and told them that they were now connected by a bond of true love. She then disappeared and the couple was never seen again. The old house is still standing, and it is said that on certain nights, a strange light can be seen coming from the windows. Some say this is the light of true love, and that the couple still roam the grounds of the house, searching for each other. Once upon a time, it was a cold, dark night when Sarah and John decided to take a walk around their small town. As they walked, a thick fog began to roll in and the night seemed to be still and quiet. The couple continued walking, but soon they noticed that they were being followed by a mysterious figure in the shadows. John tried to ignore it, but Sarah was becoming more and more scared as they walked. Suddenly, the figure stepped out of the shadows and revealed itself as an old, pale woman with long, white hair. She seemed to be staring at them with a strange hunger in her eyes. She began to move closer and closer to them, her hands outstretched as if she was going to grab them. John and Sarah began to run, but the woman kept coming closer and closer. Eventually, they reached a clearing and the woman stopped. She said nothing, but simply stood there and stared at them. John and Sarah ran back to their house and locked the door behind them. The woman seemed to follow them, but she never entered the house. Eventually, the fog cleared and the woman had vanished. The couple was never able to explain the strange woman and her intentions, but they were both sure that she was some kind of romantic horror story come to life. They never took that walk again. The night was dark and the wind was howling. The trees swayed in the wind, their branches creaking and groaning. The moon was hidden behind a thick blanket of clouds, leaving the night shrouded in darkness. Alice was walking home from work, her heart pounding in her chest. She had heard stories of strange things happening in the woods at night, and she was determined to get home before the sun set. Suddenly, she heard a noise behind her. She spun around, her heart racing. There, in the shadows, was a figure. It was tall and thin, with long, pale fingers and a face that seemed to be made of shadows. Alice screamed and ran, her feet pounding against the ground. She could hear the figure following her, its footsteps echoing in the night. She ran faster, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Finally, she reached her house and slammed the door shut behind her. She leaned against the door, her heart pounding. She could still hear the figure outside, its footsteps slowly fading away. Alice was safe, but she knew that the figure was still out there, waiting for her. She had experienced a romantic horror that night, and she would never forget it. The sun slowly set on what had been a beautiful day. As Sarah walked through the woods, she felt a shiver run down her spine. Something wasn't right. The birds were silent and the trees seemed to be watching her, but she continued on. As she followed the path, she heard a noise in the distance. It sounded like a woman singing an old lullaby. She stopped in her tracks and the singing stopped. She started walking again and the singing resumed, louder this time. Sarah followed the sound, her heart pounding in her chest. As she rounded a corner, she saw a woman standing in the middle of a clearing. She was wearing a white dress and had dark hair that cascaded down her back. The woman smiled at Sarah and continued to sing. Sarah felt a strange feeling come over her as she listened to the woman's voice. She felt drawn to the woman, and she found herself walking closer and closer. The woman opened her arms and Sarah walked into them. The woman's embrace was like a dream, and Sarah felt herself melting into the woman's arms. But then the woman started to change. Her skin became cold and pale and her eyes black as coal. In a flash, Sarah felt herself being pulled into the woman's body. She screamed, but it was too late. She was trapped in a world of eternal darkness and terror. Now, Sarah is forever bound to the woman, unable to escape. She is forced to relive the same nightmarish existence over and over again, until the end of time. The night was dark, the moon was hidden behind a thick fog. It was the perfect night for a horror story. Sam was walking home from work when he heard a noise coming from the nearby woods. It sounded like someone in distress. Thinking it was an animal, Sam decided to investigate. He stepped into the woods and immediately felt a chill run down his spine. The eerie silence was broken only by the sound of his own footsteps. He kept walking, the fear in his heart growing with each step. Suddenly, he heard a scream. Sam froze in his tracks. He knew he should turn back and run, but something was drawing him forward. He cautiously made his way toward the sound. The trees began to thin out and Sam found himself in a clearing. There, in the middle of the clearing, was a woman. She was standing there, screaming and crying. Sam rushed to her side, trying to calm her down. He asked what was wrong and she told him that she had been running from something. Something dark and sinister. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was a tall, thin man. He wore a black cloak and had a menacing look on his face.